Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at some strategies for playing the Nosebleed stakes on Zynga Poker. At these stakes, players play a little bit more seriously than at the lower stakes, and there are several good players at this table. I've been observing for about 20 minutes, so I understand how the game's going, but I'm going to try to walk you through hand by hand why I make the decisions that I do. So you'll notice here that the buy-in is 8 million. We've got 4 people with that buy-in. The others are short stacked. But that's pretty much what you'd expect to see in a poker game. Lots of players buy in for a short stack and use short stack strategy. We never do. So here we've got 4 10s suited in the big blind. It's been min raised to us. We're going to see what our pot equity is going into the flop. Looks like right now we're getting 6-1, so we are going to call. And this is an interesting flop. We expect to see Soren bet out. And he does check. So we are going to fold here because we don't know what Soren has. Notice Soren checked and then folded. This will be a great read for later. If he does check the flop to you, it indicates that he doesn't have much of a hand. We've got 7-10 offsuit in the small blind. Again, we're going to see what kind of odds we're getting to call. We do want at least about 5-1, 6-1 to make this call. And we are getting 6-1, so we will call. We'll see a flop. And we flopped a fantastic hand. Now our goal here has to be to get in all our chips, which is 8 million chips. That might be hard to do. So we are going to overbet the flop. And what we hope to see there is somebody with ace-10 or a slow-played overpair who's willing to raise and get it all in right there on the flop. We don't want to see another card come out because it could destroy our hand. If the board was to pair or a straight was to come out, we might lose a lot of chips. So here we've got ace-queen. We did have a blind post out of position. This player generally doesn't have a hand at all. We do have 2 limps coming in. So we are going to make a sizable raise when it gets to us finally. And we're going to raise about 5 times the big blind. We're trying to play a strategy that's optimal. We're not trying to be too exploitive at this point. We need to get a few more reads on the players at the table. Then we can start moving to exploit them specifically. We do see Igor limp call, and A-King opts to limp call as well. It's 700,000 in a pot. We are very deep stacked against both these players. So I think it would be prudent to go in and make a C-bet here. The fact that they bet out doesn't mean anything. What we're looking for here is to turn a jack and have the implied odds that we do going to the turn in river. We did miss the jack, so we aren't going to follow up with a second C-bet since neither of them folded. It tends to indicate that somebody's got a hand of some kind. Maybe a quality hand from one of these players that they're sandbagging right now. I do expect to see maybe a weak 10 from Igor. Something like a 10-8 or a 10-9. And we will see if he calls this. I don't believe he calls with a 10 here. I'm a bit miffed that I didn't get to see that hand. I'm not sure what A-King had. So we get pocket aces in the cutoff. This is going to be a money hand for us. We are going to have to make sure to get value out of it while we're still ahead. So we get floated here in the big blind by a player with 1.5 million. Sorry, on the button with the player with Hendry. So we're going to see how this plays out. He could be floating with a pocket pair or a suited connector or something like that. The board's very connected. We're probably going to let him do most of the betting for us, depending on just how the flop looks. Alright, so that's a perfect flop for us. It doesn't connect with a lot of hands. So we are going to try to get our entire stack in. I think the best way to do that is to go about right there. That'll leave us $1 million bet on the turn. And we do get it in against 310. And we do pick up a nice little pot. We pick up the ace-8. It's off-suited, so we are going to fold it. Facing a raise, I'd want to see ace-queen, perhaps ace-jack suited. But ace-8's generally too weak. If it had folded to us, we might consider a raise, given that we do have pretty good position. But it's not a great raising hand, and we're going to have to be very careful about how we play it after the flop. If we do catch the ace, we're not confident we have the best ace. Okay, so we have queen 9 suited. It's a great hand to make a big pot, and there's a lot of big stacks at this table, so we are going to put in a small raise. It's 3 times the big blind. We hope to get called, and we hope to flop a gigantic hand and then make gigantic bets. So we do flop a hand, not a gigantic hand. It's actually a very risky hand to have here, but we can't let that draw come in, so we are going to try to put 2 bets in. So that means we're going to bet the flop, we're going to check the turn, and we're going to bet the river. If we get check raised at any point, we will fold. Here with the 7-5 off under the gun, it's a clear fold. We need a suited hand there. 7-5 suited might be a small raise. We are playing a loose aggressive style. I believe a loose aggressive style does tend to win you more money when you're deep stacked. When you are short stacked, like in a sit and go, 40 to 80 big blinds, you don't have that much in terms of implied odds. So the suited connectors are worth less, but we are very, very deep stacked here. We're 200 big blinds deep with some of these players. Actually 220 now. So we are looking to play suited connectors for big, big pots. Here Igor makes a bet out and gets a check min raise. An interesting hand here. We expect both of these players when it goes in to have jacks. I'm surprised that the min re-raises back. I would expect to see someone jam it all in, which we do, and that's what I was expecting to see, the flush draw. Now Igor made a huge mistake there. What he should have done was called the re-raise, waited for the bet on the river, which could have been a bluff. By re-raising back and getting it all in, he actually gave Michael a 20% chance to win the hand outright. So that's something you never want to do. You never want to give your opponent just a free 20% equity because you were willing to put it in on a chop. Big mistake there. If he just calls that check min raise, Michael could have a bluff still, and then we could see a bluff bet on the river from Michael, so we just call. And that's how we keep all the bluffs in his range. So big mistakes from Igor. Good to know that if he believes he's going to chop, he will put all his money in. It's going to come in handy for us. In a lot of cases, Igor will have a hand that he thinks is the nuts, but we'll have a better hand that's actually the nuts. We know that we can get our entire stack in against him. And being this deep stack, that's really, really valuable information to have. And here Michael thinks, and thinks, and thinks, and he decides to check. Hendry and Soren, leave checking it down. We expect to see middling pairs. And what if 5 takes it down? Or 5 deuce. So Michael's willing to play big hands for raises. Also good information to have. Because our hand's suited, we can call getting 6-1, which we already are, on the off chance that we do hit the flush or the 2 pair. So we will see a flop when we do hit bottom 2 pairs. A very risky hand though, because of all the draws out there. If somebody has a king and a club, they actually have the advantage over us, I believe. I believe they'd be 52% to win. So we do want to make big bets while we have the best of it. And if we can get someone to call with a club, then we'll see if we can get that to happen. So Michael is going to fold and we're going to take it down. It's important to bet out right there though and take it right down. You do not want to see another card come on the turn, because about half the deck hurts your hand. So here we have Jack 4 offsuit. It is on the button, but it is too weak to play, even at Zynga. So we are going to check fold. I can't see a position where we would be willing to play this hand. Except perhaps in the blinds. And maybe not even in the small blind. It's a very weak hand. So a king is raised and Michael is called. It's been called by the big blind. We do see a flop and there's an ace on it. It's going to make the hand very interesting to play. We do expect to see a check. We do expect to see a king to lead out for about 250, 280k. And he is going to underbet, which seems to indicate he does not have the ace. Okay, so the 2 on the turn. A king bet, and it was called in 2 places. So here's a real bet. He bets over half the pot. He's really putting him to the test here. And we expect to see a fold from Igor. We do. Michael still has some kind of a hand. Yikes. The flush comes on the river, and an under bet, technically a blocking bet from a king. Be interesting to see what he had there. So we are in the cutoff of 2 queens. We are going to make a big raise. Something about there. 5 times the big blind. See who we can get to come along for the ride. Looks like we will get Soren to come along. And we do flop the overpair. Now our hand's not golden right now, but it is pretty good. It does call. That card destroys our hand. We don't like to see that card, but we do have to make another bet. We want to put 2 bets in on this hand, not 3. Oh, and with the queen out on the river, 2.5 million in the pot. If he has a 6, he's got us beat. If he doesn't, will he call a bet with a weaker hand? And I believe he will call somewhere around there with a weaker hand. That's what I'm going to hope to get. And he does call, and we do take it down with 3 queens. So here we have the 7 deuce. Great hand to play if you're in the 7 deucey game. We are not, so we're not going to play it. Now our stack has grown to about 11 million. We have everybody but 1 player covered. We are now playing with this player almost 300 big blinds deep. It's very deep stack poker. So we are going to try to get a king heads up. We are going to try to take his chips, as many of them as we can. To do that, we're going to have to bet big and hard. We're going to have to get check raised. The only way to get 300 big blinds into the pot is to have several bets going on one street, or to overbet at least 1 street. So depending on how the hand plays out, we may decide to induce a check raise. or induce a bet and then check raise, or we may decide to overbet on, say, the river or even the flop. Small bets. Very dangerous board for both these players. And a sizable bet on the river, and he does take it down. Here we have two kings, just the kind of hand we want to see against these players. They are willing to put in lots of chips with weak hands, so you are going to make another standard raise to 200. Now kings this deep are very dangerous because you could have a player that set nines and flops a set. So you do have to tread lightly and have to know how much you're willing to lose on this hand. Of course, that'll vary by the player and how the hand plays out. But if you're losing 4 pot-sized bets, I believe you're doing it wrong. We do get an all-in for $2.5 million. We have no choice but to call this. In fact, if you do anything but call an all-in with kings, you shouldn't be in the game. It's a great hand here. And we do lose to the ace. That is okay, we got it in as a 70% favorite. We have ace-9 here in the big blind. We do get raised under the gun by Hendry. Because it is suited, I think we do have an opportunity to play, especially with this player in here. We've got some deep stack opportunity. And we don't flop anything, and the queen is out. So we do expect to fold here, which we will do. Igor plays on. Hendry betting the turn again. Slide under bet, but an all-in bet for him. He does just have the ace-jack, and the flush takes it down. Big suck out on the river there for Igor. That's what you expect to see from these players, though. So if we do get a made hand against Igor, we do need to bet it strong. He will call far too much money with a flush draw. Here we got 4-9. It's a very weak hand, so we are just going to fold it. Even though we are in the blind, it's a little bit too weak to play. You never know what you're going to have. If you do hit the 4, you do hit the 9. You don't really have much of a hand. You have to hit both of them. And that doesn't happen very often. In fact, I believe the chance of hitting 2 pair is something like 4%. In the ballpark, 4 to 5%. So we would have to be getting 20 to 1 on our money to play for the 2-pair hand. Interesting that A-King did not raise his ace-10. It's a hand you would expect him to raise in that position, but he opted not to. Here we've got 7-10 suited. Not much of a hand yet. And that raise is a little bit too big to continue. Had it folded around to us, we would have probably made a small raise as a pot builder, trying to get A-King or Igor or even Soren to come along for a larger pot. Where if we were to make our hand, we'd have a nice pot to bet into. We could get some of our implied odds out of the hand. One of the biggest mistakes you can make in poker is to have a suited connector hand and not have a pot with which to bet into. If we were to limp, the pot would be, 30,000, or sorry, 300,000. But if we raise, then we're looking at a 1,000,000 chip pot. And since pots build exponentially, 1,000,000 chips turns into 3,000,000, which turns into 9,000,000, whereas 300 chip pot turns into 1,000,000, which turns into 3,000,000. You have the opportunity to get a lot more value out of your hands if you build the pot. And we did see Michael make a large raise with 2 queens there, much larger than I would have made. The ace-4 is a weak hand, not suited. Can't do much with it. Even though there is an ace in it, we are going to fold this Zynga. We're looking for hands that make big pots. And ace-4 generally doesn't make a big pot. Big raise out of Hendry, and he takes it down. Wonder what he had there. Alright, so now we got a hand we can play. We got suited connectors, we got A-king in the blinds. And we've got a call from Michael, so we've got some deep stack play going to happen here. We are going to make a sizable raise. We're going to try to get that pot big enough so that we can make 8,000,000 chips on this hand. So to do that, we need to put about 200,000 in, which is what we're going to do. Our hand is perfectly disguised. No one will ever see it coming. Now if Igor calls, that would just be golden. Oh, look at all these deep stacks that are going to play with us. Oh, wow. We got 2 folds from the deep stacks. So we're going to have to bet this. We do have just a couple of people in, or just one person actually. Does call. We're going to have to lead out again on the turn. This is definitely a double barrel spot. That 7 did not help his hand. And we river the 8, which could have made us flush. Question is, what hand would he have here that he would call with that we beat? And there's not a hand out there, so we are going to check. And he does check as well. We expect to see a jack here. We do see 9-8 to split the pot. So he was calling us down with a gut shot straight there. We already had the read that he calls down with flush. Now we have the read that he calls down with any drawing hand. Great read to have on Igor. 10-4 suited is gone. We are going to try to get some great hands against Igor and let him call us down with his draws. Highly volatile. He hits his draws 30% of the time, but it's a chance to make a lot of money when he doesn't. Going to fold the Jack-7 offsuit. Not much we can do with that here. We are coming up on the 24-minute mark, so we will try to play just a couple more hands, see if we get anything, and then shut the video off so you guys can talk about it. I would like to remind you that we do cover all of the things we've talked about in greater detail at riskoriented.com, particularly in our Start Winning seminar, which is a 15-lesson course on how we beat poker, how I personally and my friends talk about poker, and what we learned, what we discovered, and what we proved through mathematics. So if you are interested, check that out on riskoriented.com. Follow me at riskoriented on Twitter, and generally just stay in contact, make your comments, ask your questions. We will be there to help you out with that. Also want to highlight that we do have an interesting poker game coming out. It's going to be a way to test your skill against other poker professionals and get an actual ranking of where you stand against the other professionals. That's going to be available on riskoriented.com early September. Keep your eyes out for that. I can't tell you what the name is right now, but just check back on risk oriented, check in the sidebar, you'll see it there, check in the top right corner, it'll be right there next to the Start Winning seminar. So we're going to be doing that. We're doing riskoriented.com, we're doing the Twitter handle, we're doing the UPoker Academy on YouTube. Lots of places we're going to be talking poker. Hope you'll join us. So we're about to look at our last hand for the session. Now we do get 9-Jack, and for the hell of it, we're going to raise and see if we can't play a pot. 9-Jack makes some good hands. We are deep stacked. This is not an awful raise if we know how to play loose aggressively post-flop. We can make something out of this. And we do get called. One of the places we'd like to see it. Great, so we do have a deep stack hand building up here. Multi-way too. It's going to be a 800,000 chip pot. And we flop the 9. Very risky pot here. We would like to protect it. We don't know what else is out there. So we're going to make a half pot size bet. Let's see what we can get out of people. We do get a call from Igor, which does not mean he's got a hand. We get a raise all in. We do have to call this. We are priced in. And the 4 completes the flush. Igor does like to chase flush. We are just going to check. And we are just going to check this river. And we'll see how we've done against both of these hands. I do not expect us to be in the lead here. And we did lose to the flush. Alright, so that'll be all for this. Stay tuned. We'll keep posted on the changes at Risk Oriented.